Guys with drip. Here's Passing Mirrors. We got some new tunes for you coming up. Make sure you like and sub. We got Dirty Harry on the way. We got, there we go. Dirty Harry on the way. Pick it up. Let's get hyped. Here we go. Let's get hyped. That's our boy Rooks G with the welcoming. So we opened up there with our friend Lucy in Disguise, and we're gonna close with a couple new songs also. And then of course we had the new one from Rooks G. That was a real slapper. It was a real banger. What's up, y'all? Tonight we're covering Dirty Harry and Magnum Force. So we're gonna talk about early '70s hard-boiled film. Am I really low? I should be good. I should be good. I mean, am I low? Let me know if my volume is good, you guys. I mean, it's all reset, but we should be good. Yeah. So we're let me check it real quick. It's always the case. It's always the case. Let me turn it up a little bit. How about that? Is that a little better? How about that? Is that good? There we go. That should be a little better. That should be good. Yo, so tonight, yeah, we're doing some '70s hard-boiled films, and yeah, when I listen on my phone, the speaker on my phone is dead. I mean, it's just totally dead. So I got to put it on a Bluetooth. But tonight we're gonna cover Clint Eastwood and some Malpaso film production that he did here, and this one, these two films are great. Obviously, you know, these are classic films. This is early '70s, and what's really important about these movies, well, there are a few things that are important about them. One is that when you go back and watch these movies, this happens a lot with films that you've seen in your youth and that you revisit when you're older. Even if you watch these a couple years ago, it's crazy how things that we see things in hindsight that we sort of never saw them. There's a long arc. There's a long arc when it comes to not only movie production and the things revealed in movies, but also what has come to pass in the postmodern world. And Dirty Harry is interesting because Clint Eastwood, of course, became really famous, with The Man with No Name, with the spaghetti westerns. And then we have the movie Where Eagles Dare. Where Eagles Dare is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's like the perfect movie when you're a wee lad, of course, when you're a little kid, and it's a great adventure war movie with Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood. Broadsword calling Danny boy. Broadsword calling Danny boy. It's also really influential on action movies and on some of the huge name directors. And that movie is important. It's sort of in context when discussing Clint Eastwood, because did you know that Where Eagles Dare has the highest body count of any Clint Eastwood movie? I'm talking about the war body count here. I mean, it's a great movie. It's of course about the British SIS infiltrating the OKW high command at a castle in Austria. It's also interesting because there's a kind of there's a helicopter that appears in one scene, and it's a little bit anachronistic, but it's a great movie. And Clint Eastwood plays a U.S. Army Ranger, of course, under he's kind of the enforcer for Richard Burton. But then that's sort of late 60s, and that leads into, of course, where Eastwood leaves off with The Man with No Name. He goes back into High Plains Drifter. High Plains Drifter is my favorite Clint Eastwood movie. It's a fantastic film, which really has a convergence of the metaphysical and physical action in the movie. It's really, really awesome. But tonight, we're going to talk about Dirty Harry and, of course, Magnum Force with David Soul and Tim Matheson, who's in and Robert Urich is in the movie. It's crazy. And Hal Holbrook, who was pistol whipped in Hancock Park, as Norm says. But let's start off with Dirty Harry. This is early 70s. I think it's 1971. The early 70s is amazing because we've talked about this in context with Don Simpson and High Concept, and how the 80s and film was a sort of an equal and opposite reaction to what people at the term called, especially the ethnic acting of the 1970s. There are a series of movies that were Robert Evans picks. We just covered Chinatown not too long ago, and of course, Coppola's. We just talked about Coppola, but Coppola's Godfather 1 and 2. Then we have Kubrick with Clockwork Orange. Later on, we get things like The Deer Hunter, which I've covered, and of course, Apocalypse Now, which is the kind of apotheosis of 70s filmmaking. But what's really one other one that people forget is The French Connection. The French Connection was a Best Picture winner, and that was hugely important with Popeye Doyle, character Popeye Doyle, with the great Gene Hackman. But this one is amazing, Dirty Harry, because it's so iconic. You go back and watch this movie, and the lines, it has that kind of what people, call the Mandela effect, or whatever. The people misremember the lines, because the line is, you got to ask yourself one question: do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk, right? Rather than do I feel lucky, punk. The two lines are sort of brought together. But why this movie is important is for a number of reasons. Number one, because I used to think of this movie as the origin of the anti-hero archetype, which really does, in terms of modern filmmaking. Of course, we get the Wild West, we get Matt Dillon, and we get High Noon, we get all the Marshall, we get all these sort of films from the 60s. But the 70s really is where the era of postmodern filmmaking from World War II ends, and we go into a new era, because everything up to this point was kind of was not derivative of World War II, but it was a kind of reaction from World War II. Everything in this, a great way to look at that would be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It just sort of gives a good parody of that with the Leonardo DiCaprio character and television filmmaking. A lot of action, but things changed, of course, with Bonnie and Clyde, the Richmonder Warren Beatty movie, which, of course, had the first bloodshed scene and was given a kind of laurels by Pauline Kael. Pauline Kael is the kind of classic film critic, and she's the one. Norm also talked about her. She loved Bonnie and Clyde and really actually helped to make it mainstream. It wasn't really doing that well, and then once she wrote her review, I think in the New York Times or the New Yorker, she sort of brought it into the main. And she hated the Dirty Harry films, which culminates in Pauline Kael as a character being put sort of metamorphosed, I don't know, satirized in, I think that was, it wasn't Deadpool. It was, what was it? The Enforcer? It was either Sudden Impact or The Enforcer. It was the one with Sandra Locke, where we have a Pauline Kael-like character. But she hated Dirty Harry movies because she saw them as a kind of fascist filmmaking, and she what I think why I think this is important is because when you watch the movies, you especially if you're a man, you obviously watch the films and you completely root for Dirty Harry Callahan. He's a total. I don't even know if he's an alpha. I guess now, in the modern parlance, people would call him some sort of sigma, I suppose. But he really is, a man's man who gets the job done, and every dirty job that comes along, goes to him. So I used to think of this movie as really the true beginning of the post-postmodern era of filmmaking with the anti-hero. And what I mean by that, everybody knows what that is. But what I mean in the movie is that he is a likable figure to us, but he obviously breaks all. That's why he's Dirty Harry, because he breaks all of the rules. He sort of makes his way through the bureaucracy. He lives by his own set of rules, and he wants to take out the trash. This also was skewed when it came to, hey, what's up, Kristen? What's up, Kristen? This was skewed when it came to Taxi Driver. Now, I've covered Taxi Driver and Paul Schrader, the filmmaking of Paul Schrader. I think that Taxi Driver I like the film. Obviously, we covered the parts of the film that are great. But what I think was harmful about Taxi Driver is that it really does kind of idealize the total psycho, which, is he goes more. He's more than just the anti-hero in a movie. He's a complete loner. I think that probably Travis Bickle is some sort of Phoenix program type of character who's gone, back to New York, and he becomes a Nightcrawler. We obviously see elements of Nightcrawler that come from the movie Taxi Driver. Taco Tuesday, yeah, DJ. Taco Tuesday. Hamburger. I can make a hamburger. Ray Fiennes tries to say the word hamburger in the menu, and it ends up sounding like Brando. Hamburger. But the thing about Dirty Harry is that I don't think that, Banhammer says about him maintaining a marriage, but I'm not sure that it's a marriage that in Dirty Harry we get allusions to him having a wife, but I think we're supposed to assume that he's a widower. Oh, yeah, no, actually they address that. It's not him maintaining a marriage. He actually addresses that in, I think it's Magnum Force. He's a widower, and so that's sort of, they really do that in a clever way in the films because it's supposed to give us an indication of why he's such a steel-edged, hard-boiled character. Of course, I keep referencing hard-boiled, but that's Takeshi Kitano, Beat Takeshi, who did those Japanese movies, which are, he did some great Japanese films, which are obviously Dirty Harry in Japan type of characters. And what we really see with this film, I think that people should go back and watch it, is because the reason is because we see the San Francisco treat turns into the San Francisco heat. Get it? Because he's a cop, right? And I will not let myself get involved with anything I can't not walk away from in 30 seconds flat when I feel the heat around the corner. What are you, a monk? Yeah, I got a woman. So we see San Francisco in a post World War II era, which becomes with Dirty Harry the post hippie era, and this movie really does crystallize the idea of never trust a hippie, because the psycho in this movie is so good. He is so good. The acting in this movie is really fantastic, and a couple of the weird things that I found in this movie is obviously, I don't know if this is obvious or if this was purposeful, but Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men, which was one of my big streams, the film, not the Cormac McCarthy book, but I covered that as well. But the film and the presentation of Anton Chigurh really does take something from the psycho in this movie. Because, as I've said before, the sign of a great actor, the first thing that a great actor will do is understand the gait of the character. The actor has to take on the physical mobility of how a character will move, how they will move, how they'll walk, how they'll be. And this is like necessary for actors. This is one of the things that the average actor doesn't do. And the great actors they'll convey the fact that every person really does have a unique gait, as unique as a fingerprint. It's even more necessary than what I've talked about with the eyes, with eye acting, with believability in the eyes. The gait is something that is so exterior, and is something that's it's presented right away, especially if there is a shift in the character and in his inner state, which is conveyed in the exterior state of the character and his journey through the movie. So Dirty Harry, if you remember, begins with a rooftop. We get a rooftop scene in San Francisco, and we really do see the transition in this movie from post World War II San Francisco, where all the mayors in America were obviously World War II vets. People like Dirty Harry, and then later on in Magnum Force, are kind of obviously Korean War or Vietnam vets, and they're obviously Marines. In Magnum Force, they're airborne, just like Willard. It's funny because you watch it and you're like, this movie is like if Willard had 3 friends who were exactly like him, and they decided to become cops in San Francisco, and it's pretty wild. It reminds me of that Scorpion Squad that they had in Memphis, right, handling the gangs. Did you guys hear about that? It also reminds me of Too Old to Die Young, right, the Nicholas Winding Refn show on Amazon, where what's his face, Miles Teller is an assassin for hire at night. He's an enforcer. He's a hitman while he's a L.A. Sheriff during the day. And these are both really, really well done movies. The other thing about Dirty Harry is the score, which is really interesting, because there's this weird transition from ooh, 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 to gentle, like, Rhodes electric piano. It's very 70s, and I wonder, there's a kind of dissonance, a kind of discord in the film, with that match the psychotic notes of the way that the psycho screen. I'll get to the one scene in this movie where the psycho, the serial killer, does the most, he does the craziest vocal sound you've ever heard in a movie. If you heard this guy, if he was on trial, you would immediately, and they played the sound, you'd immediately go, this guy is so guilty. And just listen to him. But we see this post-war transition from World War II vet-run cityscape, which is obviously rife with corruption. It's one of the points of the films is that there's corruption in all the cities, but that turns into its absolute apotheosis, which is now in San Francisco, which is a fentanylscape of totally maniacal, speedballed, crystalled hobo demons, and it's hellish, right? We see the beginning of that in this film, and this movie also shows us that PC is way older than just. I always, when I was younger, I always thought that the PC thing began with Clinton in the 90s. That was when it really sort of transformed the television. You started seeing things that were different on the television, which is, people now don't even remember that ever became a thing, that it ever wasn't like that. But we see this in the 70s in the movie because the psycho killer takes advantage of the bureaucracy and the political system, and he cries out as he strikes. He's a victim. He has a victim mentality that allows him to escape justice. And you've got this dipshit police commissioner or whatever that's like, because it would never stand in court, And Harry's like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to do any Clint Eastwood impressions because the only story I know about Clint Eastwood is that I know from when I went to see Morgan Freeman in Mississippi, when I went to his house, and he was friends with my uncle, and they were neighbors, and they grew up together, and he had told my uncle that when Clint Eastwood would come to their friends, and when he would come to visit him, when Clint Eastwood would come to visit Morgan Freeman, they would ride horses together in town, that everybody would just kind of go about their business. And finally, he turned to Morgan and said, well, what's the deal? I mean, look, I'm not trying to be big time Hollywood or anything, but do these people know who I am? Have they ever seen a movie? And he was like, you in Mississippi. In other words, it doesn't fucking matter. So I think that, I don't know. I think that, Clint Eastwood is still making movies. He's in his 90s. Yeah, exactly, Maddie. The empty chair bit at the RNC in whatever year that was. Was that when Romney was running? I don't remember. I think that was 2012. It had to be when Romney was running. He did the empty chair bit, which was, I think that he probably, he can keep making movies. These guys can keep doing this. Yeah, and of course the Deadpool. I'm not covering the Deadpool tonight, but the Deadpool is my favorite one of these movies because it's I think it's 1985, and it's right before Guns N' Roses became famous. And they play Welcome to the Jungle at the beginning. If you guys don't remember this, they play Welcome to the Jungle at the beginning of the movie. That's the movie that Jim Carrey, who plays the rock star in the music video that Liam Neeson is filming. It's an early Liam Neeson role. He's a kind of B-movie, Hollywood director making this like music video or something. And Jim Carrey is slamming speedballs in his trailer, playing a doped out rock star, listening to Guns N' Roses, and Guns N' Roses is in the movie. There's a scene later where that involves a harpoon, and Slash shoots the harpoon. It's pretty crazy. And also, of course, the movie Deadpool, with what's his face, Ryan Mint or whatever, comes from the movie The Deadpool. So I don't think that was an accident. I guess they chose that. But it's the Deadpool is like Steve Buscemi in what is it, Billy Madison, putting lipstick on his face, crossing out names. I'm really sorry how I was mean to you when you were younger, crossing out names. He's got a Deadpool. He's got a Hillary Crimeton list with him. So let's get to Dirty Harry Callahan, which is, by the way, the coolest name. That's a cool ass name, right? Harry Callahan. Why did anybody ever make a parody of this movie and his name was Horny Callahorn? That's so stupid. Actually, there is a parody of Dirty Harry. I'll get to that in a second. With The Naked Gun with Frank Drebin, which, of course, Leslie Nielsen has a bit that's pretty big. So we start off with the rooftops in San Francisco, and we see a pool party going on or whatever. And there's a pool party in both of these films, but we see a sniper on a rooftop who is eliminating people. And uh, we find out that this guy, the two movies are pretty similar. The guy is eliminating people, and of course they call in Harry Callahan to take out the trash. And we go through the kind of business of San Francisco. It's we think of the movie Bullet with Steve McQueen and car chases later. We don't get much of that. That movie's not great. Steve McQueen is great, but that movie is actually not. It's a little too dated, I think. Whereas this movie, the dated aspects of this movie are they actually age pretty well. So Callahan, who carries a 44 Magnum, right, the most powerful handgun in the world, blow your head clean off, as he says in the prologue to Magnum Force, is sent to find out what's going on. And one of the guys that he comes across is the mayor, and the mayor is the guy from Animal House who says 0.0, that guy. And when he's in the office with that guy, Callahan comes in. He's got great tweed jackets, by the way, great tweed. He's wearing kind of proto Oakley's Terminator shades, and he's got this red sweater vest, very buttoned up. He's got style, panache. He's got a certain pizzazz, jouissance. He goes into the office, and the mayor says, "I don't want any business like last year, right down in the sex district or whatever." And he says, "Look, when I see a guy chasing a woman down an alleyway with a butcher knife, I shoot the bastard. That's what I do." And then he walks out, and the mayor says, which is pretty funny. The mayor essentially says, "Yeah, I probably would have done the same thing." Well, that's parodied. Remember in Naked Gun with with Frank Drebin. Frank Drebin is in L.A. and he's talking to the mayor. Remember, the Queen is coming to town, and they put Frank Drebin on the security detail, and the mayor says, "I don't want any business like last year," and he says, "Look, when I see 5 grown men in dresses chasing a man and stabbing him to death in broad daylight, I shoot the bastard." And she says, "That was a Shakespeare in the Park production of Julius Caesar, you moron." So, and he, and where the hell was I, right? Nice beaver. So, anyway, Callahan goes out. He's, by the way, met with his partner. His partner in this, the first partner he gets, Chico or whatever, is the guy who plays the guy who runs the juvie detention in the 1981 movie Bad Boys with Sean Penn. Has anybody seen that movie? Banzai. That's a great movie. That's a good Bad Boys movie. Of course, the other Bad Boys movie is a Bruckheimer production, right? Jerry Bruckheimer. What I like to do is go to the movies, okay? I'm interested in putting people in seats. I like to go to a movie theater. I sit in the seats with all the people. I get my popcorn. I watch Terminator, and I just laugh. Because for me, movies are life. I like to tell stories. That's what I do. I'm a storyteller. I like to go to films. I like to sit in the seat. Tom Cruise is the biggest. He's the greatest. Nobody's bigger than Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise likes to put people in seats and watch movies. That's Jerry Bruckheimer. So in Dirty Harry, he's got this partner. And he says, "Why are you giving me a partner? You know what happened to the last bunch of partners I had." He's also got a guy that's his kind of counterpart, which is this guy Fatso, who's in all the movies, and he's great. The police departments in these movies are wild to think about. It looks so old. And do you remember the moment that changed? The moment that changed, especially in film, was actually with the Big Nine, because after Big Nine is when police departments started getting militarized. Before that, you did have, take for instance, 1991 Terminator 2. I covered that with DPH, Church of the Eternal Logos, our buddy. And remember, that one was important because the scene in Terminator 2 where Arnie goes to the biker bar, "Give me your boots, your clothes, and your motorcycle." When they filmed that scene outside, the night they were filming it is where the Rodney King event was taking place that night. And not only was it happening that night, but it was happening outside the bar. It was in the same place. And what's interesting about that movie, of course, is because Robert, is that Robert Patrick? You telling me Bat Boy is real? Robert Patrick plays the villain in the film, and he's an LAPD cop. But the scene where they get the SWAT team and they go up to the DynCorp building, and they are about to assault the building, or even in Die Hard, something like that with the cops. The cops there's a SWAT team, but they're not full on militarized like they were after Big Nine. The way the cops are, now, I guess probably could best be seen in a movie like End of Watch or something like that, like Antoine Fuqua. If you haven't seen that movie, got Jake Gyllenhaal. That's a pretty decent movie. Of course, they're taking on, the C-Tells and all that in that film, but that's the kind of end of that long arc, to where we are now, just a few years later. That's probably the prototypical cop in film now. But in the 70s with Dirty Harry, we had guys, that are, for one, still carrying revolvers. And of course, Harry has got his 44 Magnum. Now, this leads me to something else with sort of a rethink of the anti-hero, because I think that although Harry Callahan is certainly an anti-hero to the other cops, I think probably he's that to the cops, but to the viewer, he's actually a kind of knight, because what I mean with this is that he is both hard-boiled and his 44 Magnum is kind of a metaphorical sword for him, and he is hard, but he has pure intentions. And I think this can probably be seen. I'm probably going to do a stream on the movie Drive later, because we were recently rewatching Drive, and it was interesting how the Ryan Gosling character in Drive really does kind of resemble some sort of figurative postmodern knight in a way. He is dedicated and pure in his intentions, and he's hard, but he's also gentle when he needs to be. It's like C.S. Lewis said, there's a kind of paradox with the knight. And Callahan, though, is a take no prisoners kind of guy, and he says to his boss, or Fatso actually is the one who says it. Fatso says, he gives hard R's, S slurs, things that I can't say. He treats everybody's a scumbag to him, right? In other words, we actually find that Harry is not what probably Pauline Kael thought he was. It's that he actually does have sensibility, where he cares about the partners that he's ended up having, and that none of them are up to the task. One of the things that he says in Magnum Force is that when he gets up to his shenanigans, the bad guys weren't experienced enough. None of them are as experienced at being bad as he is, and he knows all of the different routes. This is really seen in the movie with the dramatization of how he catches the bad guy, and how the villain leads him on this labyrinthine run around the city, which, by the way, ends up at the Giant Cross. So he, in Magnum Force also, he's put with a black detective who he respects automatically for his ability to get close to danger and to take out one of the bad guys in this grocery store robbing scene, where he handles himself well. And then when the mail bomb ends up going off, we see his concern for his partner, but he's completely dedicated to the task at hand. Just like in Heat, or in any of these great sort of detective movies, he's an inspector, of course, but we see that he doesn't ever sleep. I've talked before about in movies, one of the weird things in film is the amount of time spent with characters sleeping. And I think there's an interest. I still haven't really figured that out in terms of a kind of a movie language yet, and why that's done, because it's one reason it's done in films is just to show that characters are like us. They have to sleep. Another is to give the audience a kind of lull and a transition period onto another scene where we can sort of take a mental break. It sort of serves the same purpose as in a like in Lethal Weapon, right? Where uh, we have the buddy cop kind of action comedy, or in a Shakespearean sense, where you have the comic relief. You have to have a comic a comic relief because the audience can only take so much action. And one of the main problems in film continues to be, and this happens. This is one of the kind of detractors for me with Magnum Force, is that there is a there is all of the action is saved for the last quarter of the movie, and there's very little dialogue. And a lot of times, I think in films, the action runs away from the narrative, and it's not just a case of the characters doing things; they have to get things done, but it's actually a case of that the action sequences get away from the story while they're making the film. It's sort of filler. And that doesn't happen in Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry is consistent throughout the whole thing. So he's put on the case to find this psycho killer, and Harry figures out that he goes up to the rooftop where the guy was scared off, and where there was another shooting, and he goes up with his partner, and they have a searchlight. They comb the city, and it's funny because they end up using a Catholic priest as their bait. And in that scene, because the guy is sent in a Zodiac style letter saying, but it's much clearer. I suppose it would be it's not a cultic, but it is political. And he names himself in the letter. He's called the Scorpio. So the Scorpio killer is obviously derivative of what would later be Son of Sam. Son of Sam was actually 1977, so that was later. It was after this, but he's supposed to be a kind of Zodiac in this. And we right away we know that this guy is probably some kind of hippie. And Harry goes up to the rooftop, and he's got his binoculars trained on the Catholic priest, and his partner says, we gave him a chance. We gave him a chance to be a real cop, and you blew it. You blew it. What? They ain't got no napkins in here? What? They ain't got no napkins? Go to lunch. Go to lunch. I gave you a chance to be a real cop, and you blew it. What movie is that? So they give him a chance to have a stand-in, and then the cop says, "Who did he volunteer?" And he says, "Guess." In other words, Harry volunteered his partner to be the stand-in for the Catholic priest, because in the letter, Scorpio said that if he wasn't given, I think 100,000. Yeah, you got it, Circle G. Nice. Yeah, that's right, Klon. If he wasn't given $100,000 right away, then he was going to kill a hard R or a Catholic priest. And so they tell this priest in the vicinity about it, and the priest, actually noble enough. I mean, the priest refuses to let anybody take his place. So I guess he's standing there to be martyred. I guess, but regardless of that, the priest goes inside. We see on the other rooftop that there's the guy. There's Scorpio. He's come right back, and he's going to snipe somebody from a rooftop. This is real. It's sort of Charles Whitman, but not really. But the sniper on the rooftop, is definitely a post-60s, idea that we get from Kent State and from Charles Whitman. So we're going to have this sniper on the rooftop. And so Harry chases him. Now, one of the other things that's really cool about this is that when they're canvassing the downtown district in San Francisco, they're going through the streets. They find is a description of a guy with a briefcase, and brown pants or whatever, and they spot a guy. So they go after him. Harry says, "Go around to the other side. I'll chase him into the alley." So he goes into the dark alley after the guy. This is really pretty cool because it's just accepted when you watch the film. It's just accepted that, Dirty Harry is going to chase the guy into the alleyway, and that he's the cop, and he's going to be the one to do it. But I think that this takes a sort of deeper consideration, especially with what I've said about him being both the knight and the antihero, because he's the hero. A hero emerges. He's the guy who I am the danger, right? He's the guy who's going to go into the dark alley after the guy, and he actually sees the guy go into an apartment building, and he sees that it's actually it's a Cajun guy going in with his Cajun family, and they're throwing gumbo on the tracks all the time, and he's gonna get a big a good look at the guy, so he steps on a trash can and looks up, but then he gets pulled off and he gets beaten by a squad of World War II vet hard pipe hitting Irishmen who go, "What are you? We got another peeping Tom," and they're beating the shit out of him in this alleyway, and of course this is cool because the other cop comes up and says, are we going to take these guys in? Harry says, let him go. I said let him go. He lets him go because even though he got beat up, what they were doing was good. You don't, this is a gone world. You don't have gangs of Popeye, Bushmills chugging, Irish ex-grunts walking through alleyways protecting families anymore. This is not, the only place you get that is probably Belfast. You don't really get that, or maybe in Little Italy or something. I don't know. But you don't have the neighborhood old man gang anymore, and so he lets him go because, hey, respect. You didn't know who I was, and I'm glad you're here to do it. So he lets him go. Well, that means that they haven't caught the guy, and eventually, Harry. What happens is Harry is sent on his quest. He's sent on a quest. He is going to have to take the ringer. Now, this is funny because do you know who wrote this movie? This is pretty awesome. So there were a bunch of drafts of the movie, but John Milius, of all people, Apocalypse Now, John Milius as the John Goodman character in Big Lebowski. Remember, it's a ringer, dude. I'm a fucking whites, right? He gets the ringer. John Milius wrote this. One of the other drafts of this movie, of course, was done by Terrence Malick. Terrence Malick, we've covered him in The Thin Red Line, right? You see all those, nature's cruel, Starles. You see all those vines twisting around everything? Nature's cruel. I guess we can, if the men are a little thirsty, we can get some water. What a great movie. Let me feel the lack. So, John Milius and Terrence Malick wrote one of the drafts that was rejected, but was actually used, I think, as the basis for the next movie, Magnum Force, which is about a group of rogue, renegade cops, sort of SS style, taking out the trash in the city, willing to go the distance, Scorpion Squad style. Yeah, so John Milius came up with the idea, I guess, of Dirty Harry, and which is pretty cool. I mean, that gives a whole new bent on the film, I think. So anyway, he's got to carry the he doesn't have the ringer. He's actually got the cash. He's got $100,000 in a bag, and he is only connected to. I mean, this is a real quest. This is Lancelot. Well, I guess it would be Bors. He would be a kind of Sir Bors. He's Bors and his groom. Who's of course the rookie cop. And he's connected by radio, and he's got to do the thing, which became a thing later in movies. This has been a thing where he's got to run from place to place, and he's got to answer the phone call in the time, by a certain time. And he is sent on a labyrinthine run all around San Francisco by Coit Tower, by Ghirardelli or whatever. And he even has to go through the dark tunnel where he's confronted by some dirty hippie tunnel people. Hey, give me the bag. What's in the bag, Daddy-O, or whatever. He scares him off with his 44, and then he makes it, and he says, "Don't answer that. There's another old man, you know, what is it in Clockwork Orange? Can you spare some cut for me, brothers? That guy answers the phone, and he's like, "Give me the phone." Who was that? I don't know. It was just some old guy, right? And then the guy calls back, of course. Well, what happens is, yeah, yeah, he he ends up at the giant concrete cross overlooking San Francisco, which is the cover of was that just I think it's the second Justice album where they've got the giant stone cross. Yeah, it was the second Justice album where they got a giant stone cross. That was supposed to be a take on the cover of the Who album, but it's a giant stone cross. Anyway, so he ends up there and he confronts the villain in the darkness who has a red ski mask on. He's the Scarlet Devil man, and he's got a Sten gun locked on him, and he goes up, he knocks him on the head, but he doesn't knock Callahan out. He's got a thick skull. And then we really see the bad guy here and his eyes. His eyes, this guy, this actor is amazing. I mean, I'm telling you, the guy who plays the villain in this movie he's got to be one of the top 10 best villains, one of the best acting villains in movies. He is totally believable. He completely encapsulates the post hippie era sort of Manson-esque Charlie Psycho, even down to we later see him with a peace sign on his belt. And it's crazy because I thought that watching the movie, but I also thought to myself, I'm not bragging, folks, but I thought to myself, dude, I could play this role. Just remake the movie or whatever. I wish I'd been born and I could be this guy. I mean, I could have played this role. This guy, he's even got my hair in the movie. But he looks at him and he's got his eyes, right? And he says, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm going to do it anyway. And so what's happened is he's kidnapped a girl and her mother, and he's buried them alive, and he's going to tell the location of the place, but first Harry has to deliver the money to him. But what happens when you watch the movie, you go, if anybody with any sense goes, oh, they've already passed away. He's already RIP'd them, and Harry just has to go through this rigmarole so he can catch the bad guy. But he already knows this guy's psychotic enough to do it anyway. And Harry is, he has to throw his 44, which is great in the movie. It's just it's a small touch, because if the movie were made now and the guy's got, the guy's got a more modern weapon, you just figure that tossing the gun, it's going to misfire, it's going to shoot. And because he's got a revolver, the scene works, and he tosses his 44 down, and but he's thought enough to put a switchblade, scotch taped to his calf muscle. So he manages, when the guy is slamming his head against you hear that? He goes, you hear that? You hear that? Oink, oink, piggy. You hear that? Oink, oink, piggy, piggy, piggy. Total psycho. And so Callahan takes out the switchblade and stabs him in the leg. And this is the part where the guy, yes, he's a jerk cop. And you're right, Klon. He's the jerk cop in Cobra. Hey, Cobretti. Cobra is one of the greatest movies. I mean, that movie is obviously a sort of vaporwave version of Dirty Harry. But when he gets stabbed in the leg, I'm going to try to do my best impression of this guy getting stabbed in the leg. This is the noise he makes, and this is how he looks. He goes, all right, so he goes, stab in the leg, and he goes, it's like this, he does this guttural, completely psychotic scream that I don't think I've ever heard anybody else in a film do this. It is so fucking psycho, dude. All right, let me do it one more time. He goes like this. He gets stabbed in the leg. Dude, because for one thing, the dude does the Michael Caine thing of never blinking. Now he is the uber schizo. This guy's the uber schizo. He literally never blinks in the movie, right? He's a complete psycho. You hear that, piggy, piggy? You hear that, piggy, piggy? He never blinks. And remember Michael Caine, right? Well, the secret to acting is, right, if you're acting, you're going to look in this eye right here, right? And you don't blink. You don't blink, right? I'm talking and I don't blink. I can feel my eyes burning, but it doesn't matter because I'm not blinking. See, I'm not blinking. There's an explosion over there. That's when I blink, right? I turn around. That's when I blink. That was my opportunity, right? So then what happens is the guy leaves the money and falls down the hill, and Harry chases after him. Now it's a, this is the second half of the quest. Now he's chasing the Black Knight, right? Yo, shouts out to Rachel right there, Bazed Homeschool Mama. She says, yo, sorry I've been MIA, but this is your reminder to support your boy BLA because he's brilliant and entertaining and there's nobody like him. Hey, thank you so much, Rachel. That is really kind. Shouts out to Rachel, Bazed Homeschool Mom, who is absolutely killing it all the time. Big time superstar, confirmed superstar. She's the best. There's nobody like her. There's truly nobody like. I walked in here. Somebody said, have you heard of Bazed Homeschool Mama? I said, this woman's a superstar. She's the best. She and Andy, they've really got something special going on. I mean, millions and millions and millions of views. She's the superstar. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel. That's really kind of you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So the psycho leaves the money. The psycho leaves the money, and this is where the acting really gets crazy because he goes down the hill, he takes off his red, his Munich style, sort of not really even Troubles era ski mask. I mean, it's just this guy is true devil villain running, and when we see him running through the city, I mean, this guy is the fastest hobbler you've ever seen. This guy's he's booking it. He's hobbling. And Harry can't, he can't catch up to him. And this, I think, in the film is really what Anton Chigurh got from the movie because do you remember Anton Chigurh gets shot in the leg, right, by Josh Brolin in the film? Hey, shouts out JW999, you're a legend in your own mind. I'm a legend in my own mind, man. My mother's Eisenhower and my father's an icebox, man. Thank you, JW. I really appreciate it. So yeah, he Anton Chigurh, when he does the great diversion tactic when he goes to the pharmacy, he does the little Molotov cocktail inside of the gas tank outside. It's a diversionary tactic. He goes inside, gets some antibiotics, some morphine or whatever, and then hobbles out and then does self-surgery a la Ronin, right? Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a hybrid of Beck and a young Malcolm McDowell from A Clockwork Orange. All right, so the other thing, the reason I brought up A Clockwork Orange, yeah, that's a good point. The reason I brought up A Clockwork Orange earlier is because the scene in A Clockwork Orange with Alex DeLarge, where he gets taken in. I lived with my mama and dad in Municipal Flat Block A, Linnea North, right? When he gets taken in by the cops, and one of whom is a young Terrence Stamp, and he gets the thumb to his broken nose, and he's got the bandage across his nose. That is clearly, it's got to be from this movie, because this guy really is he's the uber villain combination of Anton Chigurh and Alex DeLarge, who are two branches of the 100% psychotic maniac in a movie. And this guy really, I really can't think of anybody else who's this much of a maniac in an early movie. I mean, we've covered Psycho, and Anthony Perkins is a different, he's a DID maniac. This guy is not that. This guy is a very dangerous individual. So in the next scene, first of all, he gets chased by Harry, and he ends up on the 50-yard line at the football stadium. And Harry, at this point, this is really cool because Harry chases him, she wings him, and the guy is on the ground. This is what I'm talking about with what we see now in the triple postmodern world with the striking out, striking you as they cry. The guy says, he's like, I'm a citizen. You can't do this to me, right? And Harry comes up and puts a boot on his wound because Harry, these guys I'm not even sure they're opposites in terms of the knight analogy, because this guy is just a maniac, and he's not a principled psycho villain like Shigur is, which he sort of lives in the zone all the time. Remember in Eastern Promises? Harry is really the Sir Bors, I think, and goes up and is willing to use physical violence to get the answers. And of course, the guy gets arrested, and the next scene is, this is where the movie really becomes, I think, revelatory for now, which is that they got to let him go. Now, of course, you kind of figured that was gonna happen, but there's a judge in the background. There's a judge sitting in the background in the next scene, and it's funny because it's like, I'm Italian judge, I'm British judge, the British judge and the Italian judge or whatever. The judge is sitting there, and he says, well, he's kind of doing some exposition. The exposition is done really well in this movie. And he clears it up that you can't just go around with no knock, without even a warrant and just knocking in doors, because Harry finds him. By the way, where does he find out who he is? He finds out because he goes to the hospital and he finds the doctor who treated him for the leg wound. And the doctor says he saw him one time at the football stadium or the baseball stadium or whatever it was. So Harry goes there, and the guy is living in the bowels of the stadium. Guess what he is? He's a groundskeeper. Of course he's a groundskeeper. If you've seen True Detective or any of these movies, it's always the groundskeeper. The groundskeeper is always the total maniac, and the guy is living like a rat in the bowels of this building, so he's got to, smoke him out. Well, anyway, the guy gets released because they can't hold him because it'll never hold up in court. So he's got to let him go. So then Harry, of course, does what is going to become a trope in all action movies after this, which is that he basically says, I'll take leave, I'll use my my off time, and he turns the tables on the psycho, and he out psychos the psycho. He stalks his prey everywhere that he goes, until the guy one-ups him. Harry hadn't considered the guy would be this much of a maniac. So the maniac in Dirty Harry then ends up going to an industrial park, and he finds another guy living in the bowels of an industrial park, which is the murder-gloved black guy whom he pays to beat him up, right? He pays him $200 or whatever to beat him up. Oh, you wanted the $200 treatment. Bam! And the guy, knocks him black and blue. Why? I think this is really surprising. I think people, when you first watch the movie, if you watch it for the first time, or especially probably if you watched it back in the day, you would have no idea what his motivation is here. But we find out quickly, and this is obviously something that we've seen. He pulls a juicy smouillet. He pulls a juicy smouillet, and he ends up on the gurney saying that it was Harry Callahan who did this to him, and the police have done this to him, and then Harry's got a good line. I didn't do it because he looks too damn good, right? So then we by the way, oh yeah, and by the way, and of course, and by the way, so when he finds There's a great scene where after he's been arrested, of course, Harry's motivation is to go find the bodies of he knows that they're probably RIP'd, but he's got to go find these two people that he took as hostages and used as bait for his labyrinth run. Well, there's a great scene of Harry not sleeping again, standing back to his camera with the Golden Gate Bridge and the mist rising over the bay. And the police are pulling the bodies out of the ground, and it's really sick. It's a really sick scene, and it certainly gives you through the movie. It really makes you remember that this is not a comedy. It's really about a this is where it's really hammered home that Harry has got to get this guy at all costs. And because we find out that the girl she's a girl, and that she has been the worst thing. The guy was not only a psycho, but he was a creep psycho, and that so she's dead. And this guy's a demon. So the great scene though is Harry is standing with his back to the camera, and we see the San Francisco Bay. We see the mist rising, and it really is Caspar David Friedrich, Wander Above a Sea of Fog. It's a total Germanic, romantic, expressionistic film portrait of a man in darkness going into hell to chase the demon. It's very good. It's. I think that it's really it's an impacting scene in the movie that I think really goes by the wayside. This movie it's not forgotten. I mean, it's so clearly in the zeitgeist. With the scene where I didn't even mention the scene where Harry, where he says the line about "Do you punk," is where he goes into the city, and he goes into his local cop deli, and he asks the guy, "Hey, is there a brown Audi? There's a brown Audi parked in my parking space. Call a tow truck and have it towed away immediately." Right, Porterhouse. He goes in there and he says, "Do you see it?" And then he says, "Call in at 211." Right. Yeah. So the guy calls in at 211. We know it's an armed robbery because there's a Lincoln or whatever parked in front of the thing, and there's cigarettes all outside the guy's window. So we got the getaway driver out there, and we see a shot. We hear a shot fired. Harry goes out with his 44 and smokes the guy. But he walks up to the guy, and the guy is looking for the shotgun, and Harry does his great speech, right, where he goes, I know what you're thinking, and I fire 6 shots or only 5, right? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this chaos, I forgot which one myself, right? But being that this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and will blow your head clean off, you got to ask yourself one question: do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Right? And then the guy who's on the ground looking up says this great, which is also a great line, "I gots to know." So Harry turns around and pulls the trigger, and he's fired his 6 shots already, and then he smiles, and that's a great scene. The guy, son of a bitch, right? That's a great scene because we have the victor and the vanquished. And there really is a dynamic here where they both recognize they're on the same level, and the rest of the world at that point kind of doesn't exist. It's a really great scene. There's a dark humor in it, and I think that it's extremely well done. Of course, there's another scene with Harry having this occurs in a lot of movies. Even Crocodile Dundee took this scene, which is there's a jumper. So this is in The Other Guys. It's in Crocodile Dundee. It's in a lot of movies. Harry goes up on the ladder, on the fire ladder, and there's a jumper, and he tells the guy, "I just need your name. I just need your name because, to be honest, the aftermath of this is that it's just basically a bowl of human soup down there, and we won't be able to identify you. So I need your name. I had a partner. He was up here with a jumper pull. Guy pulled him down, and we couldn't even tell the bones apart afterwards. And then the guy goes, 'Son of a bitch,' and then jumps on Harry, and Harry knocks him out, but he saves the guy. So of course that's kind of that's really where another aspect of the antihero, I think, to most audiences kind of comes into view with this film, because the guy is, you say this this is interesting because this was also in The Guardian. I'm here from the U.S. Coast Guard, and I'm here to help you, ma'am. Remember Kevin Costner in The Guardian? Actually, a great movie. I really like that movie. I like ocean movies and disaster and rescue movies, and so anyway, so Kevin Costner is he does that great thing where he's saving the guy, he's saving the man and the wife from the boat wreckage in the ocean, and the guy, when a person's drowning and you're saving them, they'll panic and they'll drown you just to get air. So Kevin Costner, breaks the guy's nose, And what's amazing to me is that most people now, if you talk about that scene, uh, most people will not understand that. If you happen to tell a person, if you're walking through the grocery store and somebody says, "Hey, how are you doing today?" and you happen to tell them, "Listen, if you're ever drowning and you're going to save somebody, pop them right in the nose and then you save them," right? They, which is what you do in the grocery store. They won't understand that. They'll say, "Yeah, but you hurt them," and they don't understand that you have to. It's worth it to live, right? And Harry does the same thing in this, and I think that the sensibilities of the audiences are just so askew that they don't understand that. Sir, this is a Wendy's. That's right. That's right. Um, right. We're dead already. uh-huh. So anyway, so what happens next? Harry goes after the guy, and the guy, of course, gets out, and he is again the never trust a hippie guy. He's got a giant peace sign belt, and even the peace sign on the belt is slightly askew. Have you noticed that when you watch the movie? It's slightly askew, kind of like his character is not quite right in the movie. Well, he's not quite right. He's all the way not right. So then the guy, of course, the psycho Scorpio goes into a liquor store, kind of a Steven Seagal-esque liquor store, and he starts talking to another old man, hard-boiled vet behind the thing, and he says, "Aren't you the guy that is taking out the trash like 17 times?" And the guy's like, "Yep, I've done it every time with this right here," and he's got a revolver. And then he says, "Oh, I scare easy." So this really is what we've all talked about so many times. This is the nice guy. Right. This is the nice guy. Harry is the mean guy, but he's the guy that you rely on in the situation. This guy is the nice guy. And the nice guy is going to be the one who, when the guy turns around and puts the revolver down, he smashes him over the head with his OE 40 ounce, takes the gun, takes a Bell's or whatever, takes the money and leaves. So now he's armed again. That's him. Just a real skeevy, slimy scumbag guy. Right. So anyway, Harry finally gets on the guy's case, and he chases him all the way through the industrial park. And I think that it's important that it ends in the industrial wasteland in the Fitzgerald Valley of Ashes, in the T.S. Eliot wasteland, because it shows, not to be too esoteric about it, I guess, but I think that it shows that where the industrialism of society, and not industry, as what's his name says, as the industrial aspects of society have become the kind of Blakean dark satanic mills, we get all sorts of Morlock people living in the bowels of these places that come out to feed on society, and they always make their way back there. And you have to have someone like Harry Callahan to chase them into these places. And then finally the guy goes from like a rock salt quarry out to taking another hostage, which is this young boy who's fishing in the nuke stream outside. And what does Harry do this time? This is great. Harry's about to throw down his weapon again, but then bang, and he smokes him in the shoulder. The kid gets away. Thankfully, the kid is smart enough to run away, because that usually doesn't happen in movies. Actually, in Magnum Force, there's a scene like that with adults that I'll get to. But kid runs away. The guy's standing on the dock. He's on the edge of the abyss. There you go. And Harry smokes him. He falls, and he's in the weeds. And then, just like the scene with the football stadium and pulling away into a kind of a God's eye view through the mist, looking at them, now we see the camera again pull away. We see the cityscape. And so the knight has completed his quest, and Dirty Harry is over. This movie did really well, of course. It's one of Clint Eastwood's most well-known roles. And I think that it's a really important movie because, again, you see so much derivative filmmaking after this. They really, it's hard to watch. You'd be hard pressed to find a cop movie or a movie with a psycho killer or whatever after this, all the way up to now, which did not take something from this movie. It's really really well done, and it's just a movie for guys who like to watch movies. All right, so you guys, if you want to, before we get to the next one, please like and share. Please hit that sub. Help me to get these numbers up. Help me to get the numbers up, y'all. Go back and watch my old streams. You can also grab a membership. Thank you for grabbing memberships, people who have. And let's see. Let me add a link in here. So if you guys want to support, I'd really appreciate it. I can always use the support to get some books. Honestly, I've been probably the last 12 or 14 books that I've read, I have not. They just haven't been for the stream. I've been reading. Like when I read history or when I read, I keep trying to think of a way to put this Cicero book into a stream. And then also, I don't know. I don't know if you guys want to see it, but I don't know if you guys want me to do this Saramago, The Double analysis, which is the basis for the Jake Gyllenhaal movie, Enemy, which is a great movie. I was ready to do it. I was about to do it. And then I thought, I just don't know. I don't know. So if you guys want to see it, let me know. I mean, maybe I could just do it in a member stream. I don't know. Yeah. So also, hey, speaking of Base Mel and Riggs, Joel Silver produced those movies. Joel Silver is working with our friend Toby, and I still haven't caught it yet. I'm about to watch the movie Bookworm. Shouts out to my friend Toby Harvard out there who has put out his movie with Elijah Wood. He's got something else in the works right now. I think he's working with Joel Silver. He is really, really killing it. So he's done a lot of great work in the past, and he wrote that movie. So that'll be that. I'll probably do an analysis of that coming up. I'm obviously biased for that movie. So, and what else has happened? Hey, shouts out to our friend Joseph Arthur. Joseph, if you guys don't remember, Joseph Arthur, who had me on his show a bunch of times on TNT, has just he's about to put out an album on November 15th, and that is with Rich Robinson from Black Crowes. It's got Peter Buck from REM, and it's also got one of the guys from Screaming Trees. I nearly lost you there. Right? Remember Screaming Trees? I saw them open for like Aerosmith. I think that was that one. That was September 19th, 1994 when I saw that at the Classic Amphitheater. You can fact check that one. September 19th, 1994, Aerosmith. I think it was Screaming Trees at the Classic Amphitheater in Richmond. See if I'm right about that. So Joseph Arthur is, they got a song out right now. So that'll be coming up. And I just recently, this was last week, I did an interview with a guy I know from when I was very young. I've told you about this on the last stream. I did the interview with him, and he's writing a book on theater. So maybe I'll get an acknowledgement in the book. And that was, supposed to be about 40 minutes, turned into a good 2 hours. That was great. It was great. And I don't want to tell you his name yet, but he's a big deal. He's a big guy, and not in the area of theater. So so that was cool. That was very cool. Got some other things in the works here. So if you want to support me, I would really appreciate that. So let's move on here to Magnum Force. Magnum Force is cool. This is the sequel, and this movie has David Soul from Starsky and Hutch. Now, that might not sound very cool to you, but it actually is. David Soul is very good in this movie. First of all, he's got a cool name. I like his name. That's not even the character's name. And Tim Matheson, of course, from Animal House, just like the other guy in Animal House. Tim Matheson is also great. He was especially good in Black Sheep. You remember Black Sheep with Chris Farley? Guess you got some cookies right about now. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, remember that? And it's got Robert Urich in it. Yeah, this is a good movie. Hal Holbrook, who got pistol whipped in Hancock Park. So in this one, what happens is, again, we've got some sort of maniac going around San Francisco. And, of course, I haven't even gotten into, the Dave McGowan aspects of San Francisco. Phil Lesh, by the way, just passed away. R.I.P. Phil Lesh from Grateful Dead. Speaking of San Francisco, you should see how many pictures I got from people sending me, texting me pictures of the Grateful Dead house in San Francisco that day. I've even got a picture of it when I went to San Francisco. That's one of the go-tos you go, where you go in San Francisco, I guess. I always like Brent Midland. Brent Midland the most in Grateful Dead. He was always my favorite in the Dead. Anyway, so here's what happened. Yep, shouts out to Chris and everybody out there. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Show some love here in the chat. Drop into the chat. I'll get to the super chats at the end. You can grab memberships. So, Magnum Force is interesting because, again, we have some sort of maniac on the loose, and over the course of the film, we start to see that there is someone in black and a uniform who is smoking the criminals. And the movie starts off with a pretty predictive scene here. We get, of course, a protest. It's not predictive in the sense of the protest. That's obviously going to be San Francisco. It'd be like having a protest, in a movie in Portland in the 1970s. That's what you're going to get. But we get a bunch of dudes walking out of the courthouse, and we find out that there's an organized crime figure who has been let off. And there's a protest. There's a weird scene where they're chasing the guys who are, they're driving away, and we get this last person literally running like this after the car, if you watch that movie. So what happens is we see Harry Callahan, of course, again, going through his daily routine. This one, we actually see his home. He lives in an apartment building, and we find out about his wife. So as he's and when he goes to the morgue, and one thing this movie didn't have, by the way, which they always have in films, is the trope of the coroner eating a club sandwich on top of a body in the morgue. That happens in almost every movie. Almost every movie, you go into the morgue and you see the coroner talking about the bullet holes in the guy eating a club sandwich and putting it on top of the body. This one did not have that. In fact, when Harry gets injured at one point, he gets his leg shot up because he foils a robbery at a grocery store where 5 bad dudes walk in. Harry, of course, has to do all the dirty jobs. And he comes out and he smokes one of the guys, and one of the other guys is undercover as a grocery store clerk. That's the guy that ends up being his partner. And Harry is he's in the doctor's office, and the black doctor, he's shooting the shit with him, and the guy, he says Harry's old school, so he's like, yeah, all I need's a shot of whiskey or whatever if you got it. He doesn't want the morphine shot from being shot in the leg, I guess. But the guy's going to cut his trousers off, and he says, nope, at $15.95, I'll just take them off. Don't worry about it. $15.95, damn, you can't even get a Big Mac now for $15.95. So anyway, when he's talking to the guy, the guy mentions his wife and then immediately stops and says, I'm sorry, Harry. And that is a great example of showing, not telling. We see in the movie, there's no need for exposition here. They do kind of fill it in later, but there's no need for exposition. And we simply see a mention of Harry and his wife, and the guy stopping and saying, I'm sorry, which obviously indicates to the audience that his wife has probably passed away. Now, later on, he explains to Yoko, who shows up. By the way, everybody in this movie, as soon as they get around Harry Callahan, they want some of that. they want some of that Harry Callahan. I don't know. They're all about Harry Callahan. His Sigma energy is just too much for this Yoko character who lives in his apartment building. She's been waiting for him to come out, to come home for days, and she says, "Aren't you the dirty cop that lives upstairs? Say, what does a Jezebel got to do to sleep with a Magnum packing cop like you?" or whatever she says. And he's like, "Try knocking on the door." when we go up to his apartment building with him, we see there's a picture of his wife, and it's a wedding picture. And then later he does explain, which is very interesting. He says in the movie that he says a drunk crossed over the middle line and then she was gone. But the way that he talks about it is really wild, because it's not that the acting is bad. It's that this guy is so on the edge where he's got to be that he was married, the thing happened, and now he's got to focus and live his life. It's not that he's moved on, but he's just a dude just trying to do the thing that he was born to do in the movie. It's pretty cool. It is actually pretty cool in the movie. I think probably Pauline Kael or audiences would take that as some sort of misogyny in the movie, but it's not that. It really is an example of, dudes being, you gotta keep on living, which is easier said than done, of course. But Harry sort of typifies that. So Harry then goes to the shooting range, and when he goes in there, there's a group of 4 fellas in there, and these guys, these guys are doing what dudes love to do. They're hanging out, they're chilling, they're at the range, and they're going to go out for beers afterwards. It's pretty cool. And they're trying to, they're shooting at the targets or whatever, and Harry comes in, and they do this interesting thing where they show I think this is a good scene to be deconstructed when Harry goes to the range, because the dynamic is interesting here, and it's really only interesting in light of its disappearance now in mainstream society, because he goes in and he sees the dudes, and he's clearly the top dog. He's the older guy. He's the successful inspector. He's Harry Callahan. He's a legend. These guys are new on the force. They're in a motorcycle unit, but they're young guys, and they clearly defer to the top dog here, but they don't do it in a way that makes them out to be like simps. They're hanging out, and they show that they can hang with the best of them, but that this guy's the top dog, and they show him deference. And so they say, "Hey, let's see what this gun has got." So he pulls it out, and he's got a good grouping on the target, and he even offers them a chance to shoot with the gun, and they do the smart thing here. Now we know that there's an ulterior motive for them not taking up the opportunity to do this, but they say, I don't think I can handle that. They're all shooting with like a 365 or something like that, whatever. But then they all go out for beers, and Harry then talks to one of the other cops that he sees, and he's like, he thought they were all gay for each other or whatever, but turns out they were just, they all came into the academy together. Oh, that's the black guy that he meets. That's that he ends up being kind of Harry's partner in this situation. The other guy that Harry runs into is one of his old cop friends who comes out, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And the guy's like, "I'll tell you, these sons of bitches don't know what to do. My wife left me. Everything sucks." And Harry's like, "Chill, dude. It's a Wendy's. Why don't you just retire? You don't need this shit anymore, man. You've been on the force for 29,000 years. You can just go fly a desk." And the guy's like, "Somebody's got to work the streets." So he's the older motorcycle guy, and he ends up being a martyr, which is interesting because the bad guys take him out. So next scene we see, is this where we see a pimp? So there's a lady who gets out of we sort of switch perspectives here, and there's a lady who comes out of an apartment building, or she's at a black tie event or whatever. She steals the taxi away from Gil Bates and his wife, or what, it's the R child party or whatever. And they're like, "You can't do that." And she's like, "Watch me, motherfucker." She takes it. Notice that the guy holding the door is like, "Yeah, go get him." So she gets in the back of the car. She starts counting her money. She's a lady of the night. The creep who's driving the taxi keeps looking at her, and she says, "You want some of this?" Well, then what happens is she goes to her house, and the pimp is there. The idea for a story, a pimp with dimples. He's the dimpled pimp. That pimp be dimpling. The dimpled pimp. He says, "Yeah, everybody thinks I'm cute, but I'm a hard motherfucker," right? That's so stupid. the DP, the dimpled pimp. So stupid. So the dimpled pimp gets in the back of the car, and he says, "Listen up, bitch. Where my cheese at?" So I know you got some more in there too. He pulls some. I know you hiding it down there. So he pulls out all of her stacks. Right. He ends up pouring damn Drano down her throat, and dude, he fucking smokes her in the back of this taxi cab, just like nothing. Next scene, we see him driving his Superfly mobile, which is literally a pimped out ride across the Golden Gate Bridge, across the abyss. And then we see a motorcycle behind him. The motorcycle, oh, that's bad news. So he takes him all the way off road. They always end up at the same place, which is under the bridge. Under the bridge downtown. They end up under the bridge downtown, buying that black tar. No, they end up at the bridge, under the bridge downtown, and the guy says, "Don't you know who I am?" And he pulls out his license with a $100 bill in it, and then he immediately gets smoked. Well, guess what? At this point, we're watching the movie, and we know that Harry has observed that these guys are really good shooters, the cops that he met, and they have a specific grouping. Right, so he knows their pattern when they're shooting, and then when he investigates the crime scene, he's told these guys are professionals. You know, this wasn't just some robbery, and we know it's not a robbery also because we find the license with the money in it. This also leads us to believe that if they were shot at close range, it would have to be somebody that they didn't suspect was going to smoke them, like a traffic cop. So Harry starts to have this feeling in his gut, and this is also after the scene where the mobsters came out of the building, and they were in the car, and they got pulled over by a motorcycle cop who smoked them also. So now we know, we're watching it, and at this point we know David Soul and his group of very, guys that stick together, a group within a group, right? Just like Point Break, they're a group within a group, and we find out later in the movie that there is some sort of cabal within the police department, which is a group of Ernst Röhm type SA guys who want to take the top people out of society and make their way down so that the streets can be cleared, and one day a real rain's going to come and wash the scum from the streets, taxi driver style. And these guys are willing to do it. They are beyond ideological. And, of course, because they're special forces, they bonded in special forces. They're airborne. And the guy, by the way, the cop who was Harry's friend who went off like like he was in the Wendy's, is the guy who's in charge of the Ed Lansdale Phoenix Program, Air America, CIA heroin operation in Lethal Weapon. It's that guy. So, anyway, Harry does a really clever thing here. He starts to suspect that it's these guys, so he goes to the shooting competition. Harry's the top shooter. He's the top dog. He's the top G. He's the top gun, literally. And he misses one of his shots on purpose. He humbles himself, makes a fool of himself in front of this huge crowd of people so that he can have an ulterior motive of asking for a second round with David Soul's gun. David Soul is the leader of the SA gang, and he uses the 357, and he misses one of his shots. So he goes back later at night, and he pulls it out of the wall. He pulls the slug out of the wall, and they've suspected before that because it was a 357 round, this had to be it had to be somebody like a cop, but they didn't have a way of proving it. So he examines the slug. Now, when he's in the ballistics lab, looking at it himself on the edge where he's got to be, he gets he gets talked, his partner comes in and says, "Hey man, why don't you think about coming on over? Me and the wife can make you some dinner." This is a great scene. It's really great, and it's not exposition. This scene shows you that people care about Harry Callahan, and he cares about them. He's hard-boiled, but he cares about the meek. The meek shall inherit the earth. He cares about the meek in society. And this guy comes in humbling himself. And the way he looks and says his line is really touching. I mean, he says, come on in. He's like saying, "Come on in, be a part of my family." And Harry says, "No, I can't do it. I got something else I got to do." But we know that he's not blowing the guy off for no reason. So then what happens is basically he goes back to his apartment building and he sees that his mailbox has been messed with. These guys might be special forces, but Harry knows he knows a few things. So he sees that there's a letter. He's got a Kaczynski letter bomb in there. And there's another scene where this, Niles character comes down and he's like, excuse me, it's a federal crime to mess with the mail. I'm calling the police. I am the police, right? If you bothered me for another few seconds, then we'd all be soup on the ceiling or whatever he says to the guy. And the guy also has a weird sexual thing for Harry, which is, I mean, it's really weird. The guy's like kind of Gumby like attitude in this. Also, by the way, the main gangster who gets smoked in the high rise, or if you've seen the film, Fatso and his partner are scoping out the mobsters in town because Hal Holbrook has told Harry Callahan that it's one of the mob enforcers who's doing all the killing. And Harry says, look, I want to get these guys as much as anybody else. I wish they were gone, but it's not this guy. He's liable to be the next victim because we learned that there were 15 people killed at the pool party, and we saw the cop come up Zodiac style through the reeds up the hill and shoot the guys at the pool and smoke them all. So we're confirmed at this point that it's a motorcycle cop. But when we see the high rise and Fatso and them are pulling the stake out on this, the main guy and the main gangster in San Francisco in the movie is, they say, Hal Holbrook says, in his thing, he's like, look, this guy has a first grade education. He's a real dum-dum. And it's like, yeah, you say that, but the guy's in charge of the entire West Coast. He's in charge of narcotics. He's in charge of prostitution, gambling. He's got, building contracts. This guy's he's a made guy. But when we see him in his apartment, he turns around. I never noticed this in the movie. He turns around and there's a lady, there's an Apollo and Diana in his bed. And this guy turns out, I guess, that he's one of the characters. I think it's Tim Matheson. His name's Sweet. Well, this guy's a little sweet, if you know what I mean. And he gets smoked by one of the cops who then goes downstairs and smokes the cop that Harry knew. And then it's David Soul, and he stands there and he's like, I was first on the scene. And then he ends up, this guy's cold. This guy's a cold ass rider. He even is there with the widow and with the son and puts the coffin on the plane and says, if there's anything else I can do, which Harry's like, what? That's a little weird. He didn't even know this cop. And the guy says he feels like somehow he's responsible. Harry knows at this point that the guy is responsible. The I feel somehow responsible is because the guy is cold and because he really isn't. He doesn't feel responsible at all. This is some sort of dark holy mission for him to take these guys out. Well, anyway, Harry ends up checking the slug. Then his partner gets smoked with a letter bomb. Now he is pissed, and he goes on his spree, trying to get the other guys. He karate chops one of them in the throat again at the industrial park. He gets one of the other. He finally gets David Soul. And this is weird. It's a weird death scene. This movie isn't as strong as the first one because the death scene's weird because the guy drives off like a gangplank into the abyss, into the water, and is lying face down in the water, kind of like the guy in the first one in the reeds. But it's like, is that what got him? Why would that get him right there? It's a little weird. And Harry ends with the line, a man's got to know his limitations. Of course, then he gets confronted by Hal Holbrook. Hal Holbrook, as the police commissioner, he's the police chief. Turns out there is a cabal within the police organization, and that he says there's a lot more where they came from. And he is running a full-on Scorpion squad within the police, which is going to fully take out the trash. Now, the problem with this is that they're taking out their own guys, and they're willing to take out anybody, even the good guys. And then so Harry takes the car bomb at the last minute before he gets out of the car, dials it in, puts it in the car. Hal Holbrook backs out, drives away real slow, and then blows up. And man's got to know his limitations, and that's the limit. That's in extremis. The guy is smoked. So, of course, we have an enemy within. That's right. And, I think that this is an interesting franchise. I think there are 5 Dirty Harry movies in all. We've got, get the Trump truck boy, the Trump truck boys. I don't know. They told me garbage is the hottest word right now. Remember he said that? Yo, it's going to be a big week this week. There's a lot going on. And I think, I wanted to cover these 2 movies because depending on when you watch this, I think that, I think it's important to watch movies like this just for your own sanity. And because you can only be so dialed into the events all the time. And what I've found is that since it really was, just on another note, like it really was great for me, in a lot of ways to get off of Twitter. And, what was that, like a year and a half ago, something like that. I never missed it. Since I got off, I just got off and deleted it and it was gone. And I think that, I'm not suggesting that for anybody else. I think it's, I think that what suffice it to say, I think it's important to tune out of things sometimes and remember that, we live life and that the important things are here and, with your friends and family, of course, and doing the things you were doing. And sometimes it's important to watch movies and read books and listen to music that has nothing to do with the current political climate or any of this stuff, because you inevitably find that it has everything to do with that. Everything is sort of connected in this way, and you always find elements that are tied in with other elements, and then it's always going to be the case. Just like with these films, these 2 movies are totally revelatory for the post-postmodern world. They have elements of prediction in them, of course, and we see this weird contrast between the former world and the world we live in now and where it was leading. The fact that everybody in these movies is soft except for Harry is really showing that, he felt anathematized to the way society was going at the time. And now that has completely become, it's like you watch this and you're like, damn, if you thought it was bad then, like, look what it's become. But, I think that, there's a new dawn rising all the time. The sun, tomorrow will be another day. And, God sets the planets spinning in their motion. And I think that, we continue living. And I think it's important to, just take a step back sometimes and just chill. We do have to just chill in a lot of ways. And in a way, I think that's what sort of Harry Callahan kind of typifies in a way. Even though he is a kind of Borsian knight going after these bad guys and the hero emerges, I think that his attitude is also pretty chill. He doesn't get emotionally upset, even with his lines. He gets he's a continuous look of disgust on his face, which is what probably most of us have now. But he chills, and I think that it's important to do that. It's like when he goes to visit in Magnum Force, when he goes to visit the wife of his old partner friend or whatever, who is they're separated. This is before he gets smoked by David Soul. He goes and talks to her, and she sits down, and we know she's going to make a pass at him. She says, like, how come you never made a pass at me? And we know what he's thinking. He doesn't have to say it. We know he's thinking that he doesn't like this. He has a nobility to him. He's disgusted by the wife of his friend who would hit on him. There's zero chance he's going to give in to that. But he's also a very, he's a regular masculine guy. He goes home and he doesn't simp for this Yoko character downstairs, but she comes up and he's going to, he's a dude, so, but yet he goes to see the family. He goes to see the guy's kid. And he is gentle with the meek. So I think that it's important to keep those things in mind. Of all things, a Clint Eastwood movie, I think really does that. And this is probably where, obviously people like Pauline Kael and some of the, liberal critics of the time and of the postmodern left really pushed, this sort of stuff. They found repugnant the way that the movie portrayed society when we see that is exactly the way it is and that it's become, and that people have a hardness and a softness which is in an appropriate time. So anyway, that's Dirty Harry and Magnum Force. There's 3 other movies. There's Sudden Impact, The Enforcer, and the Deadpool are the 3 other ones. The Deadpool, I think, really that one's always been my favorite. And John Milius is great. I mean, he's so great. He really knows how to write characters. John Milius wrote the scene in Jaws with Robert Shaw, right? Which makes the movie Jaws. 1975, the first summer blockbuster movie was considered Jaws, and as a phenomenon. And that movie was already interesting. If you've read the Peter Benchley novel, it's really a very good novel. It's of course good beach reading, but that scene where they're sitting on the boat drinking, and Robert Shaw is this kind of old Irish, captain on this boat talking about the USS Indianapolis and the shark scene. That is what really makes the movie. That is the center of the movie. It makes the character. It makes us love the character. It makes us see that this guy is probably going to die for these new friends that he's got, and for this cause he's gonna be a sacrificial character, and we love him for it. And that was a John Milius scene. He was also asked to punch up a number of scripts and in movies that I can't think of any right now, but he oftentimes, I know he was a kind of mentor to a lot of film directors. Robert Zemeckis, I think he was a mentor to Robert Zemeckis, and a lot of these Hollywood guys, these big Hollywood guys. But it's interesting how he really has a knack for verbal wordplay and for creating the best words in the best order, sort of film poetry. So that's really great. I really like John Milius. So, I think coming up, I'll probably do Drive, Ex Machina, and I had a sponsor stream for Lars and the Real Girl, so I'll probably throw that in there in a kind of I is another, as Rambo says, stream. Also, I need to get back to doing some Shakespeare, and I'll be doing some more literary streams. This is a literary channel. Even the film work that we do is an offshoot of literature. We're talking about filmmaking as art, and so I'll obviously continue to do that. So if you've got any ideas for streams that you want me to do, put them in the comments below after the stream, especially books that you want me to cover. I'll probably be doing, again, a member stream with Enemy. And now we're going into, of course, the Thanksgiving season. So let's see. Let's see if we got some support here. Yo, shouts out to, first and foremost, Jason, our friend Jason out there. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you, Jason. Really appreciate you. Thank you for that $10 on PayPal. Thank you for the support. Love you, man. Thanks. It's always great. Hey, shouts out to Buster out there. Who said to help you warm up for Eastwood. Thank you so much, Buster. Shouts out to JG out there who drops $5 on PayPal. Appreciate you. And says, ever read Neuromancer? Opening songs always sound like they'd be the soundtrack to that book in the best way. I haven't read Neuromancer, and I probably should, because it's another one of these books that I kind of have avoided for most of my life, but I will, if you want me to check it out, I will check it out. And I know enough about hearing about Neuromancer that I probably need to. I always tended to stay away from reading a lot of fantasy or anything like it when I was young, except for, C.S. Lewis and Lloyd Alexander. But I will check it out. And thanks for mentioning the music there. I'm going to end, of course, with our friend Lucy in Disguise. I opened up with Rooks G. Check out Rooks G. And make sure you buy ROOXG, Rooks G, and Lucy in Disguise. Buy their music on all the places where you would buy music. Please support them. Go to Rooks G's YouTube channel and tell them that I sent you. Tell them you came from here. Hey, shouts out to Jacob out there who drops $10 on PayPal. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. That is big time. Really, that means a lot. Thank you. That is awesome. Let's see. Let's get to the super chats right now. Let's check out the super chats. We had a big one here from Rachel. Thank you, Rachel, so much. Let's get to these. Let's get to these in order. First of all, thanks to First Person Q for grabbing a High IQ Book Enjoyer membership. Thank you. Hope you enjoy that. First Person Q, been around for a long time. Thank you to Rachel, again, who drops 50 bones right there. $50 right there. And, again, said, sorry she's been MIA. And, yes, we are sorry, too. And we love you. Pray for you. Pray for the Wilson family. And love you so much, Rachel and Andy. Thank you for dropping that $50, Rachel. Based homeschool mom, Rachel for Patriarchy on X. And she was very kind. Thank you so much for that super chat. That's great. Hey, shouts out to JW again for that $10 super chat right there. Hey, Dr. Spangler out there, $10. Super chat says, psych, you're doing Drive, the Sigma meme. That's right. Thank you, Dr. Spangler. Thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate you. And, yeah, we're going to be doing Drive. And, I've kind of been thinking about it for a long time and I've been trying to find a way of covering Drive. And I think we found an angle here, so we're gonna look into that, which is the kind of night angle. And of course, Ex Machina by Alex Garland. I've covered Men by Ex Machina. I've covered The Beach, the book that Alex Garland wrote, and the film. Haven't done Annihilation. We did Civil War. So we need to get back into Garland and probably do Ex Machina. I mean, I know it's been covered a lot, but I think I've got a different angle on it, which seemed very apparent when I recently reread it. So I'll be looking at that. And let's see. I don't know if there's any other support here. Thank you so much for all the support. If I missed you, please forgive me, and I will get you on the flip. As Jason Burmis says, Burmis! Shouts out to Jason Burmis out there. And I need to get back with Jason Burmis. We need to talk to him again. Shouts out to Hesher and the Boiler Room crew, our good friends out there, Ruckus and Hesher, and Grunt, right, Cody. Shouts out to Wandering Wolf. Shouts out to Spore. Shouts out to all of our friends out there, David Patrick Harry and his new beautiful bride. We hope they are going to live long and prosper. All of our friends out there, thank you so much. Hey, I'm going to leave you tonight to play us out. What does that mean, to play us out? What, to end the show? All right, go. And that'll do us tonight with Can't Do It. Do it live. Fuck it. I'll write it. We'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks. All right, so here's Sting going to cut off his new album to take it away. Here is Rooks G, and this is... Nope. We played Rooks G. The Welcome. You want me to play it again? Should I play it again? Let's play Rooks G. Let's play Rooks G's new song. Rooks G has a new side project called Clinically Alive. First, I'm going to play some Lucy in Disguise here. I'm going to end us with a couple of songs here. So it's going to be an extended outro because I want to give some shouts out and support to our friends out there who are making music, creating. Because we love them and we thank them for doing that. So I'm going to end this with Lucy in Disguise. This is called Digital Campfire, and then Campfire FM, and then I'm going to end it with Rooks G's side project called Clinically Alive, and that will be You're Not Here, okay? So here is Lucy in Disguise. This is Digital Campfire. You guys, please support their music. Tell them that you came from me. Really appreciate you all. Love you so much. Thank you for being here with me. Hope everybody has a great weekend. And listen, was it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it if you're strong enough. Love y'all. Did you?